All right, let's dive into the fascinating world of defensive pessimism. So imagine you're a person who tends to have a more negative outlook on life. You might constantly worry about things going wrong or expect the worst outcome in every situation. Sounds pretty gloomy, right? But here's the thing, this mindset actually has a purpose and can be quite useful in certain situations. Defensive pessimism is a coping mechanism that some people use to protect themselves from disappointment or failure. It's like having a mental shield that prepares them for the worst case scenario. Instead of being blindly optimistic and setting themselves up for potential letdowns, defensive pessimists anticipate obstacles and plan ahead. Let's take an example to make it more relatable. Imagine you have a big presentation coming up at work. A defensive pessimist might spend hours worrying about everything that could go wrong, technical glitches, forgetting important points, or even the audience being uninterested. They might even envision the worst case scenario of their career going down the drain. But here's the interesting part. All this worrying actually helps them prepare better. They meticulously plan their speech, rehearse multiple times, and have backup plans in place. So when the actual presentation day arrives, they're ready to handle any curveballs that come their way. Defensive pessimism can also have an impact on mental health. While constantly expecting the worst might seem stressful, it can actually reduce anxiety for some individuals. By mentally preparing for negative outcomes, they feel more in control of the situation. It's like they've already considered the worst and are now ready to face it head on. However, it's important to note that this coping mechanism might not work for everyone. Some people might find it overwhelming and experience heightened stress levels. Now let's talk about how defensive pessimism affects society. In some cases, this mindset can be beneficial for collective decision-making. Imagine a team working on a project. If everyone in the team is overly optimistic and fails to anticipate potential problems, they might overlook crucial details or be caught off guard when issues arise. However, if there's a defensive pessimist in the team, they can bring a valuable perspective by pointing out potential pitfalls and suggesting contingency plans. This helps the team be more prepared and resilient. On the flip side, defensive pessimism can also have its downsides. It can sometimes lead to a lack of initiative or reluctance to take risks. When someone is constantly expecting the worst, they might be hesitant to step out of their comfort zone or try new things. This can limit personal growth and innovation within a society. Let's dive a little deeper into the world of defensive pessimism. One interesting aspect of defensive pessimism is that it often stems from a fear of failure or a desire to avoid disappointment. People who adopt this mindset may have had past experiences where they felt unprepared or caught off guard by negative outcomes. So, as a way of protecting themselves, they develop a habit of expecting the worst and mentally preparing for it. Defensive pessimism can manifest in various ways. Some individuals may engage in excessive worrying, constantly running through worst-case scenarios in their minds. They may imagine all the things that could go wrong and mentally strategize on how to handle each situation. Others may take a more proactive approach by meticulously planning and preparing for any potential obstacles. They create backup plans, gather additional resources, and leave no stone unturned in their quest to be ready for any adversity that may come their way. Now, you might be wondering if defensive pessimism is always a healthy approach. Well, it's important to note that like any coping mechanism, it has its pros and cons. On the positive side, defensive pessimism can help individuals feel more in control and reduce their anxiety. By mentally preparing for negative outcomes, they feel more equipped to handle whatever challenges they may face. It can also lead to better decision making, as defensive pessimists tend to consider a wider range of possibilities and potential pitfalls. However, defensive pessimism can also have its drawbacks. Constantly expecting the worst can be mentally exhausting and emotionally draining. It can create a negative mindset and hinder one's ability to fully enjoy positive experiences. Additionally, it can sometimes lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the constant anticipation of failure actually increases the likelihood of it happening. This can create a cycle of negativity and reinforce the defensive pessimistic mindset. In society, defensive pessimism can play a role in collective decision-making processes. For example, in the field of risk management, defensive pessimism is often used to identify potential hazards and prevent accidents or disasters. By considering worst-case scenarios, safety measures can be put in place to mitigate risks and protect people's well-being. On a broader scale, defensive pessimism can influence societal attitudes towards change and innovation. In some cases, a society that embraces defensive pessimism may be more resistant to change and less likely to take risks. This can hinder progress and limit the exploration of new ideas and possibilities. The impact of defensive pessimism on mental health and society can vary from person to person and situation to situation. It's important to recognise that different individuals have different coping mechanisms, and what works for one person may not work for another. So, to sum it all up, defensive pessimism is a coping mechanism that involves anticipating the worst-case scenario in order to prepare and protect oneself. While it can be helpful in certain situations and reduce anxiety for some individuals, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It can benefit decision-making in society, but also hinder personal growth if taken to the extreme. Like everything in life, balance is key.